Is an early harvest synonymous with high yields and good grain quality? These are questions tillage farmers across Ireland will be asking themselves right now as they look forward to harvest 2025. So I've come down to County Kilkenny, visiting the farm of Edward Delahunty to get some answers. Could we start maybe with a little bit of background on the farm, on the tillage enterprise that you have here?
Well, this is just a mixed tillage enterprise, Richard, and we're cutting winter barley today, and after this winter barley we'll probably move into spring barley, all malting barley. And then what we have, Richard, is we've gluten-free oats then for Tirlan, and then we'll probably end up harvesting beans. We have no wheat this year. We've kind of lost out on wheat for the last couple of years because of, you know, just we're trying to get out maize and get out beet, and you know, that's also a part of our tillage program, beet and maize. And you know, we haven't got in wheat in the last couple of years because of tricky autumns, but that's where we are. So it's just basically forage crops: maize, beet, malting barley, gluten-free oats and beans. And as you can see, that we're cutting the winter barley today.
So the barley crop here in this field looks amazing. Could you give me a little bit of background on it, please?
This barley crop here, we probably planted this around the 5th, 6th of October. It's integral. It's a 6-row hybrid. It's a 6-row. It's not a hybrid. And sorry, it's not a hybrid. It's integral. It's a new one. It's BVD tolerant because we're going in a bit early. That's why we chose that variety. But sure, look, you know, you can try different varieties anyway, and I can see how you get on. But we're very happy with this crop. It never really got a setback, Richard. It came up nice and level. You could nearly lay blocks on it now. It was just an outstanding crop all year. Our timing was grand all year because our timing with the weather allowed us to be bang on all year. And you know, we went out with our first P&K in mid-February, and then we went with probably another 110 units of nitrogen, both split between mid-March and mid-April. You know, our final sprays, you know, in the end of April. And you know, obviously different parts of the country, Richard, we got just sufficient rain in May and June where other parts were suffering, and you know, it probably helped the crop here. Straw looks good here today. Just on what we've mapped out and what went over our own weighbridge there yesterday, we're on a probably 4.1, 4.2 of tonnage at low moistures now, 15, 14. We'd probably maybe should have harvested last week, but the crops, we couldn't believe the way the crops are after coming in. They're so fast, like from last week to today. But look, we're delighted because it's a good yield. We're probably above average at the moment. Our winter barley has been below average for the last couple of years, below the 4 tonne if you want to take an average of just our own kind of mark of where we should be. So look, we're not finished yet. Straw looks good, but look, it's all down to the weather. Look, when we can come out and harvest here, and you know, there's no panic, like, and you know, we go bale the straw there on Wednesday or Thursday, and there's no turning and no fear of, you know, rain coming and you're rushing and that's, you know, the price is poor for growers this year. We don't know where it's going to end up, but it's not looking good. And you know, to try and get tipping into average yields or a little above it and get the weather to cut it, it all helps the bottom line of every grower. So it's looking okay for the winter crop at the moment anyway, Richard.
Disease pressure was quite low this year. Would that be a fair assumption?
Fair to say. And you know, we went with a BVD tolerant, but you know, sure, we had no real, you know, even on aphids, and disease was low because we actually got a cold enough winter, and then, you know, we didn't get a real wet spring, like, so, you know, it seemed to be no problem, you know, nice, clean, you know, flagly, everything was nice and clean in the crop. And as you can see here, you know, there's not a weed, it was just ideal conditions this year, yeah. So that's why we're delighted that the crop is delivering that tonnage that we need, because if it wasn't doing it this year, we'd kind of saying, what are we doing wrong, like, you know.
You'll bale the straw, you will?
Bale all the straw, we bale all our straw, yes.
So you put nothing towards the straw incorporation?
We have it in the corporation, and we have oats in it, and we will probably take it out because, you know, we just put it in just in case the weather got tricky. And you know, the last thing a grower wants to be doing is, you know, going out there trying to bale straw, turn straw, trying to get it fit for your customer. And you know, we just have it in just in case something went wrong, and we got that 2-week wet spell, and we had a problem that we had to harvest the crop, you know, and if we had to chop it, we just have that flexibility to do it, like, you know.
Does 4 tonne to the acre deliver a margin for you, though?
Sure. Does it deliver a margin in rent of ground? Look, it's, you know, the costs going up every year, it's getting fair difficult, like, you know. I mean, obviously, we do a bit of contracting, and it helps with the machinery costs in our system, and everybody has a different cost base, everybody. but it's getting very difficult, Richard, you know.
So the grain harvest now, as it unfolds for you, where will you be going next?
Well, sure, look, you know, after this, like, we'll have to wait and see where the malt and barley crops. We had them in early enough, and they seem to be very good. And where the winter's after turning, the winter barley, malt and barley, like by the end of the month, certainly start of August, you know, we could be into it fairly early. All depends on what heat comes. I mean, if we get a drought between now and the next 30 days, we'll be certainly into it in August. They look fine, grain fill looks okay. And look, but sure, we don't know. But that's where we will be, Richard, you know, kind of August hitting into the malt and barley. Oats is after turning something unbelievable in the last 7 days. So into that, after that, and then your beans, and then into your forage crops in early October. We'll have maize being harvested certainly in September. It's an unbelievable crops this year, because they were in the polar opposite to last spring, in a month earlier, you know what I mean? So yeah, they're all crops, grass crop, everything is looking very well at the minute, you know, from in our county anyway, in our farm.
But from a harvesting point of view, everything depends on the weather.
Everything, and the weather. You know, we can talk about the price, and we can say, look, we can't control the price, as you know. The price, we're price takers. You know, it is in a global market. We can look for people to blame. We can blame organisations or government, or we can blame the millers. But look, we have to take the price on the day, and hopefully, you know, the merchants and everybody will do their best for the growers, and they want us in business, because they're not in business unless we're in business. But it's difficult at the moment, and you know, if the growers get bad weather, that all adds to pressure on the bottom line. If we were down here today and we'd send men home, and you had to come down here and start turning straw every time you drop a rake, or every time you have to do something, it's all ended this 5 or 10 margin, which is just not in it. It's just eating out your any margin that can even be made. So yes, Richard, weather is just vital for everything, like across all the world.
So tillage is recognised as being a core response to climate change, low carbon footprint. I mean, we've heard this.
Yeah,
you know,
carbon neutral, we probably are getting there in some crops, from work that Tegas has done.
We have this target of 400,000 hectares. We're nowhere near it.
No, we're nowhere near it.
So I suppose the obvious question is, does the government need to step in and support tillage on a consistent basis?
Yeah, look, Richard, I mean, we all know the government need to step in, and we know, in fairness, the Minister of Agriculture last year, he gave growers €100 a hectare, €40 an acre, and it might have sounded small at the time, but it was such a simple system. We got paid for every acre we planted. Doesn't matter what it was, there was no discrimination, you know, and it was just, when the checks arrived in February, they were really, really welcomed, you know, and we need more, but we definitely need something this year. And hopefully, sound bites are that they are working on something, and we know different organisations have met, you know, and I know the IFA and different organisations have met with the government to maybe put some kind of financial stimulus into the grain sector. And sure, listen, it has, look, we're at the same price we were post-COVID, and I mean, you go to a grain man or a beef man, where would they be at 30 cents a litre, or even at €4 a kilo? And you know, when you're heading south under 200 a tonne, let's be realistic, it's just, you know, we talk about margins, it's just not possible the way the costs have unfolded since COVID.